Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here, coming at you with another ranking video, sort of themed in line with the recent debut. I did a ranking of all the 6 Ranger suits in honor of Boon Violet's debut, and since we also have recently debuted his mecha, I thought I would rank all of the main robot forms of 6 Ranger mecha a little later than I wanted. I wanted it to coincide with the episode where we saw it, but things just kind of got delayed, and I wanted to take my time to make the list. And as with the previous list, I would have thought this would be one where you get a lot less pushback and actuallying and you forgot this, but I'm just talking about the general robo formations. I'm not really so much talking about their individual Zords or whatever, it's just the main robots they use, and for stuff like Dragon Ranger, I'm using the Dragon Zord because that's basically his main robo. I know there's the Warrior mode, I'm sure there's going to be some actuallying about it, but this is just supposed to be fun. I always remind people of this, and I still get the comments of you forgot this, you forgot that. It's not a book report, guys. It's just supposed to be fun. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So coming in at the bottom of the list is the Patron X Gunner formation. Now, I really love the idea behind this mecha. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Pat Lupin X in general. Like with the suits, I talked about this in that video I like the idea so much, but the execution didn't do it so much for me. Love the idea of mecha having multiple forms, you know, throwing back to Time Ranger, Time Force. I would love for us to have a main mecha in the future Sentai have sort of similar mode red, mode blue. But I love the idea behind it, but I always personally found this design to be a little fugly. After that is the Two Kaiser Mecha Ricky formation. Now again, this is another one where I like the idea. I actually do kind of generally like both of their designs. It's just when you put the whole thing together overall, it just looks a little patchy. Like, I love the Zeo helmet, I love like the Zeo-esque helmet being blue. I do generally like that, but when you look at the thing overall, it just looks a little bit like hodgepodgey and patchy, and it's just not my thing. Coming up right after that is, this is kind of back-to-back, is the Samurai version. I just like this one a little bit more. It kind of very similar thoughts to the Zeo O-Ranger version. I like the idea, I like the general helmet and the core design that's echoing the past Sentai, but when you look at it all together, it just doesn't quite flow right for me, even though I do like it. After that is Buster Hercules, the formation for Beaten Stag Buster. Now this is kind of a complicated one, because I like Gold's Warrior mech on its own. In fact, if I was just judging it based off of that, it would be much higher up, because I generally really do quite like that design. Yet another one reminding me of the big Borg Megazord from Beetleborg's Metallics. But when you put them together, it just looks a little bit messy for me. Like, it just looks so busy and clunky, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, and I prefer like the visor design of the helmet before he opens it up. This one's just overall pretty messy for me. Next up is the Lupin X mecha, this time the Lupin Ranger formation, or the Silver formation. I think it's called like X-Emperor Slash or something like that. This one is a bit of a mixed bag, because kind of similar to the other form as well as the Two Kaiser ones, it's more about when you look at the whole thing together, it doesn't quite flow and the colors kind of mismatch and it just looks a little bit collagey. But I actually do like the design on this one, like in terms of just the core design of it, setting aside the coloring or whatever. I think it actually looks pretty cool. Like, I think that the Gunner one looks clunky and fugly, but this one I think looks just cool. But when I was looking at it like for this video, I was like, actually I hate the way that the colors flow. There's something slightly off that holds it back, even though I generally like kind of the core design outline. Now after this is one that only counts for us, which is the Solar Zord for Lightspeed, which is Titanium Rangers, because there was no 6 Ranger in Go-Go V, Go-Go 5, whatever. I've heard it both ways. And this one's overall fine. I think this was another case where things worked out remarkably well for them, where there was just this mecha there that could have perfectly fit. It doesn't feel like as cool of a 6 Ranger mecha, I think, because it was not intended to be, but I think it worked out pretty well. I don't have too much to say about it, other than I just like it fine. And again, I find it to be one of those funny situations where whatever the Sentai did just kind of accidentally lined up for them, kind of like with the way Cocker Ranger worked out, where you had the Falcon Zord there, right there for the White Ranger. Next up is the Omega Max Megazord slash the Deka Bike Robo. I do like things about this one, but it just feels a little clunky for me. I mainly like the blades on the arms, and I love like the police visor, bike helmet design, but the chest boobs, I mean, that's where all boobs are, but I mean the fist boobs, and I don't know, it's fine. It just always felt a little bit dorky to me. It's like weird because it's like dorky with a little bit of cool, but it's never been one that's been my favorite. I do really like that it becomes a giant bike that the Deka Robo can ride though. So one I realized that I accidentally skimmed over with my eyes when I was reading off the list I had made was Star Ninja's Mecha, which I overall do like. It's not like an absolute favorite, but I've always had a personal soft spot for the Ninja Mecha. I thought that they had some really creative designs, some fun designs, and this one has a lot of personality, you know, my favorite word to use, but it kind of fits the feel of it, and I like it for what it is. Next up after that is Build Resha. This is kind of one of those ones where even though it technically is rather low on the list, I don't have like an overwhelmingly negative opinion of it or an overwhelmingly positive. It's just kind of those ones that's just there, and I think it's successful at its design. I have a little bit of a soft spot for it because, like I said, I kind of have soft spots for all Orange Rangers because it's so rarely used. And this was kind of our first Orange Ranger, or at least for me, the first Orange Ranger that I thought about as an Orange Ranger because he wasn't from Purge Night. And this was like kind of our first real Orange Ranger mecha, so I do like it. It just doesn't do anything to like tip the scales of it being higher up on the list. Then we have Gosei Ground, Robo Knight slash Robo Knight slash Gosei Knight's mecha. This one is fine. I think the thing I like most about it is I thought the way they did the lion theming was cool. Obviously he becomes his own kind of main mecha, but then I like that there was like the two other different types of lion type things. I thought that was kind of cool. And it's not a mecha I particularly hate, but it just never clicked with me as something super cool. In fact, I think the kind of pointy head made it look a little funny. And when I was looking at pictures for this, he kind of has a derpy face. So I only like it okay. After that is the Solar Streak Megazord. This one actually I liked a little bit more when I was looking at pictures after I had already made the list. And I do like this one. I think it looks pretty cool. I think it's kind of cool to have a more magical looking train mecha, as most of our train mecha, whether it be from Lightspeed or later in ToQger, are very tech based outside of stuff like the Lion one from ToQger. But it's kind of cool to have something different like that, and it does have a really cool design. I like the contrast of the blue and gold colors. It's just kind of drowned out by the other ones where I almost like all the other mecha in its ecosystem more, just because I do tend to lean towards more of those magical ones like the Titan Megazord and the Wolkaiser and Manticore even. So I do like this one. Manticore even! But I do like this one, just not as much as the others. However, again, it gave me an idea of a theme. If they ever go back to trains, I'd love to see them do something like maybe magical trains or something like that. That would be cool, like designs that weren't so techy. Following that up with Flashpoint. What should we call this Megazord you created for us, Barry? I was thinking Flashpoint. I do like this Megazord. I think it's overall pretty cool. I like the way it incorporates the rescue theme. I think it was pretty cool the way you have the idea of, you know, all three Zords pertaining to a theme. You know, like you have something like Predazord where only the wolf obviously is based on his suit, where the other two have nothing to do with it. But this one, they kind of all three tied together. I thought that was pretty cool, and it makes for an overall pretty cool mecha. It's just, there's others I like more. Next up, you have the Duo the World mecha. Initially, I actually thought this was going to be lower, because most of the time when I was seeing it, I was seeing the toy, and I remember being so disappointed by the toy. But then when I went back and looked at it, it's actually pretty cool. I do like the design of it. I like the contrast of colors. I like the different creatures used. I personally do like the Duodra mecha. I think they're fun and unique. It is lower-ish on the list because there's other I like more, but I actually like this one more than I remember, just because the toy really was so bricky that it kind of took away from some of the more cool aspects from when you actually see it in live action. Following that up with Tenkujin slash the Samurai Star Megazord. This is one that I always just liked fine, and I could never really put my finger on why I just didn't care for it. Not in the sense that I hated it, but I always just was kind of like, meh. And like when I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. It's got some sleek, unique aspects to it, but I don't know why. It's just one of those ones, almost sitting on that scale I've talked about in the past, where it feels like something I should like more, and I just don't. Again, not that I hate it, but I just was always kind of indifferent to it. Next up is Seikuo from Power Rangers RPM slash Go Busters. Go Hunters. So many names, guys. So many names. This is another one I thought would rank higher because I think it's my favorite, or it was my favorite, of the individual, like the 4 individual RPM Go Hunter mecha. And I still do like it, but I forgot how clunky it looks with the arms. Like, I love the slick design of Jumbo Whale when it becomes the robot. I think that looks really cool. But then when you put the arms on it, it makes it look goofier. And I know it's a very goofy series, but it's just this contrast that for me doesn't work as well. Like, you have these giant arms and then the colors contrast, and it makes it look a little funny. Not in a charming way, not in like a negative way where I'm like, this sucks. But like, it just, sometimes you'll have that clash of charming or cute or silly and cool, and it works. But for me, this just clashes, and it kind of takes away from how well like the main Robo flows. Like, again, this used to be my favorite for years until I kind of realized I wasn't a fan of the way that it clashed, and I think I kind of pivoted towards the Valve Max, because that one I think the charming and cool and the colorful just all kind of work. Next up is the Defender Torozord. This is one that I always appreciated fine, but has risen in the ranks over years. I think it was some years ago when I finally got one on eBay as it was a hole in my collection, and then I'm like, this is actually a pretty cool mecha. It's very slickly designed, it's not over-designed, it's got a nice color contrast with a bit of that black gold there, it's very effective and simple, and I just really like it a lot, and it just kind of really rose in the ranks. I think, I don't know, just getting the toy, maybe there's a little bit of, I don't know, sentimentality, because it's not like I had it for a long time and was sentimental about it because it was a new edition, but it was just kind of like getting this last thing I needed from Lost Galaxy, and it made me just appreciate it, having the thing in front of me. And then every time I saw it when I was watching anything Lost Galaxy related or whatever, it made me realize I appreciated it a lot more. Another one I forgot, which is hilarious, which is Boon Violet's mecha itself, since this video is being made to coincide-ish with its debut. Probably because I started work on making this list before it came out, so I wasn't really thinking about it, but I needed to include it. And I do like this mecha. It's kind of like one of those ones I was talking about where it's got that really classic Six Ranger looking mecha where it's just meant to be cool, and it is. I just really do dig it. I love the formula design. I like the way he kind of like drives his own feet or whatever on the ground and then stands up into the mecha. It's a cool mecha for sure. It's not an all-time favorite yet. It could grow on me more, but for now I just like it okay. Next up is Machine Dry-Jin. Now this is the Cara Major mecha. I actually have always liked this one. It's not as cool as some of the others. Like I love the main Cara Major mecha. That's one of my favorites in recent years. The Phoenix one, whose name I forget, that one is cool. Both versions of like the Train Dino, Train one are just really cool. I really love them all. So this is probably my least favorite of the core mecha in this series, but I still really like it a lot. I think it's really charming. I kind of like some of the contrasts that kind of work even though they shouldn't with his main suit. I think you get that here too with that bright orange with the crystal diamond color, and it just kind of has this personality of kind of the, I don't know, like dorky musclehead guy. Like, just there's something about it I just kind of like. After that is the classic Q-Rex slash, I think it's Z-Rex in Japan. I just kind of prefer Q-Rex because the whole quantum thing I thought was cool. Now this is one that if I was solely judging it based off the Robo form, it would probably be higher up there because I really like the Robo Dino T-Rex form, Q-Rex form. But the robot itself, I think it's cool, don't get me wrong, it's a pretty cool design, and you have like a rocket hand and stuff, but I just felt underwhelmed compared to the Dino form. I just always liked the Dino form a little bit more, and I thought it looked cool, but just not as cool as the Dino form, which is what held it back a little bit for me. Then you have Gigant Ho-Oh for show. This is one I always personally really liked from Q-Ranger. It's really funny in the Q-Ranger Renaissance when we did Cosmic Fury and everyone was suddenly Q-Ranger's biggest fan to defend its honor. Despite that, people would still not like the mecha very much. But this is one, I mean, so I can't disagree. I don't hate him as much as most people. But this one was different. I really like this one. I'm really kind of a sucker for a modern retro aesthetic, and I felt this had this, where it didn't feel like it was a full retro mecha throwback. It felt like a little bit something different, but also it had that kind of retro feel to it, and I was always kind of endeared to it because of that. Next up is the Clawzord. Now, I think, technically speaking, I can't remember if this was one of the things they brought over from Shinkenger, but I know that in Samurai, like his main Zord is the Octozord because that's what he based his powers off of, but this is like his main robot, so that's what I'm counting for this, and technically he can combine one with the Octozord. I've always liked this one. I thought it was just cool. This is a good example of something kind of silly looking because it's like a giant lobster and like you have like the circular design, blends with it being kind of cool. And I always just like this because it's like a giant lobster that becomes a robot and it's gold. Like, that's just so simple, but it's so golden. Like, I don't know. I just always was endeared to this because I thought it simultaneously looked kind of goofy and endearing and cool at the same time. You have Pyramidas. This is another one that took me a long time to appreciate. Like, I don't remember how I felt about it when Zeo was out when I was younger. I just was kind of like, cool, it's the Gold Ranger Zord. I didn't remember having any strong opinion one way or the other, but sometime in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years or something, I realized how cool that is. He flies a frickin' pyramid and it becomes a giant pyramid robot. It's really simple, and I don't think, does he ever transform into it without the Ultrazord formation? I don't know, but still, even though it can't even walk, it's still cool. Like, come on, it's a giant pyramid that becomes a robot. Now, just a quick little honorable mention as to where I would put this, because technically speaking, Geki Chopper / Rhino Ranger doesn't count as the 6th Ranger, but if I was counting this mecha, I would put the Rhino Steel Zord / Psy-Dio here. I think it's a great looking mecha. It looks like this badass, like, guardian warrior totem statue that's come alive, and I even love like the way it has that initial helmet that looks kind of like a ranger helmet and it folds over. So if I was to rank this, it would rank here. And also, honorable mention, this isn't like a full-on robot, but I do love the Hydra mecha that Hyperforce Green gets just because I love all of the different mythological creatures that they have for that series. Now next up is the Dino Stegozord, or Killer O I believe it's called. This is one that I always feel like should be higher up just because I love Abare Killer so much. And I do like it, and obviously is higher up, but I don't like it as much as I would think I would based on how much I like everything else surrounding Abare Killer / White Dino Thunder Ranger. With that being said, I still think this is a great mecha. I really love how it has a much more monstrous villain design, kind of skirting the line between a traditional Megazord and what you would usually see from like a villain robot. So I really do appreciate it for that kind of savage look. And also I think it's unique too that it is made up of technically the Six Rangers stealing an auxiliary Zord to make his own Megazord. Next up is the Terra Gordon from Dino Charge / I almost said Dino Fury, from Dino Charge / Kyryuger. This is just a great mecha design. I really like it. I think it's just really slick and cool and badass. It's kind of one of those ones that's just like an easy target, meaning like it's not anything outside of the box or exceptionally weird or cool in a different way. It's just like a cool, badass, slick-looking gold robot, and it just works, and it got me. Next up is the Tigerzord / Wand Tiger. Always been a big fan of this one. I just think it's an overall solid, classic-looking robo that yet has its own distinct feel that goes kind of hand in hand with the Thunder Megazord. And you have the Gojujin / the new T-Rex, the Q-Rex 2.0 from Super Mega Force, which I always liked that they called it that. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a cool throwback, cool bit of lore there. But this one is just great. I love the triple changing aspect to it, but when it comes together, kind of unlike, almost actually the opposite of the classic Q-Rex, where I prefer the dinosaur mode on the classic Q-Rex. But with this one, while I do like the dinosaur mode quite a lot, I just love the mecha. It just looks so slick and cool and put together. Like, and you can see all the influences, which I really like, especially from Abba Ranger. I thought that was really cool to incorporate. But even setting that aside, it's just one of those ones you just see and is immediately cool. And I think kind of a step above Terra Gordon, which obviously it is on the list, but I mean, both of them kind of have that immediately classically cool look, but I think this one stands out as a little bit more unique compared to the more simple approach of Gold from Kyryuger. You have the classic Dragon Zord. Like, it's hard not to like this one. I mean, it's basically a Mecha Godzilla. It's just very well designed. It's clearly, you know, based off of Godzilla, and yet I think it kind of has an identity all its own. I like that it's technically not a Megazord, but effectively feels like the Six Rangers Megazord, as it can go toe-to-toe with the Megazord, both in terms of scale and power, and it's just kind of the absolute classic Six Ranger Megazord that despite its overexposure and overpopularity, much like a lot of things with mmpr, I still can't help but love it. You're gonna go for Kishi Ryu Neptune / the Mosa Razor Zord. I always thought this one was really cool. As I've always talked about in the last videos where I've discussed this, that I really like the Mosasaurus as a motif. I thought that was a really cool kind of, in a way, outside the box prehistoric creature. I guess maybe it got a lot of attention because of Jurassic World. Wasn't it the one that ate Lena Luthor? Regardless though, it became one of my favorite prehistoric creatures after this series and after that movie. I just thought it was kind of a cool creature, and I thought it was kind of unique compared to some of the, you know, classic ones we usually get, especially for like Six Rangers and Red Rangers and stuff. And I think it made a really cool mecha. It looks like a really cool, like, Atlantis warrior robot. Then here we have, I didn't even know its name. I just knew it as Dondra Goku's mecha. It was like Toradora the Explorer or whatever, Toradora Gojin or whatever I wrote down here. This is just a cool mecha. This was one of those ones. In general, I actually really liked all the Don Brothers mecha, but man, this one was really cool. Yet again, another one of those ones that I think is just very classically and easily cool because it's a golden dragon, but I just especially love the idea of the dragon and the tiger. Again, it kind of calls back to some Tommy stuff in a way, but also the purple and gold contrast is neat. It is weird that it wasn't silver because of the whole gold and silver thing, but I kind of liked that just because it was so unique, and the purple and gold is something that just kind of works together. Coming in at the runner-up is the Pretazord. This is one that has become more of a favorite over time. Maybe it's in part because I'm still on the hunt for a reasonably priced Pretazord. That one's kind of gone insane on the aftermarket. It's not like too insane, but I guess it depends on where you find it, but still it's like outside of the range of what I want to pay. So it's forever remained one of the holes in my Wild Force Gal Ranger collection. But over time, I've just grown to appreciate what a badass mecha this looks like. Like, it just looks like such a savage, awesome Megazord, and I love the combination of all the three beasts. You know, you have the wolf representing the main character, Hammerhead Shark, and the alligator. I like them all individually, and they come together to make just a badass looking robot. My number one favorite one is God Tarantula. This one took me by surprise. It's really funny, because when I first saw it, I was kind of whelmed. I was like, oh, I thought I was gonna like this more. But then when I actually got the toy, saw it in the show, and got to see it more, I'm like, no, this actually is really cool. It's like a spider spy robot, like Spider. It kind of reminds me of that spider spy-looking Pokemon from Paldea. Yeah, it's different, but same idea. But I think that's just really cool. It's really slick. It's got that kind of spy theme. And the more that I sat with it and saw it in the show and owned the toy, I just really liked it. And I think I mentioned in a previous video, even though I had the black gold edition, and I love that because I love having one of my favorite mecha in black gold, I actually prefer the regular one. It just is really cool. Maybe it's also the added excitement of loving the new White Ranger, but I really like that one. But that is it for this list. Let me know what your guys' list is of some of your favorite 6 Ranger mecha in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell. Get notifications for all my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.